Okay, so we did the study of the lemon in oil in using the burnt umber base, and which is the Bister, and that is one process, working wet on wet. The other process that I'm going to show you, which is still a direct method, so we're still going to be working wet, as opposed to laying down an underpainting, letting it dry, and coming back over with layers, which I will show you another time. But for this one, I'm just going to go with a brighter palette and work with a less muted method. So I'm going to do it right next to this one that we have here. And I'm going to first actually do the lemon and then work the background up around the lemon. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is just sketch out my lemon again. I'm actually using a little bit of yellow ochre and a little bit of Hansa. So my brush is just a little bit dirty, so it's got picking up a little bit of the burnt umber that I used the last time. But I'm just going to sketch this in. Again, I'm just being really loose. I'm not super worried about getting the exact shape, just for our purposes. Okay, so now I'll fill it in with this yellow, which is a little bit darker than the yellow of the lemon itself. But what I'm going to do is actually allow some of the canvas, the white of the canvas, to show through right in this really bright area here, kind of over in here. And then the rest of it, I'm going to work up to that and allow it to be a little bit more opaque. And that will help us retain some of the lighter area that will kind of come through just a little. You can still see just a little bit of the white of the canvas through that area. It'll have a softer effect after we apply the rest of our paint, but initially you just want to be able to see that through. So I'm going to add just a little bit of white there, just to really emphasize the lightness of the yellow in there. Okay, and now I'll put in some of my shadows. I can do that in a couple of different ways. I could go more toward brown, so I'll probably go with a little bit of yellow ochre, but then I can actually either cool it off, go a little more toward green, which would be kind of nice. So I'll add a little bit of ultramarine blue to my mixture as we go. Again, I'm leaving this area alone for now, just so that I can retain the lightness in there. But I'm working my way all the way around, applying a bit of dark in there. We'll have just a little bit of that kind of a green, not kind of, it is a green mixture right at the edge there, which I think will be nice. It'll give it an even more kind of naturalized look. A lot of lemons have, including this one, have a sort of green cast in some areas. So I'm just going to kind of exaggerate it a little bit just so you can see it a little bit better. And then I can add more darks around it. If I'm adding a background, then I need to consider how that's going to read with the background. But since I don't have a background yet, and I think I'm going to keep it really light, I want to add enough value, meaning darkness, you know, a gradient of light and dark, to give it some form. And I'm not really, it looks a little from your view like I'm drawing a line and leaving this sort of line, but what I'm doing is actually just going along that edge, and in a sense drawing a line, but then pulling that value onto the lemon itself. So I'm not left with like a harsh outline. And I may just, exaggerate it a little bit just so that you can see it better. Okay, but we start to get a rounded form the more shadow that we put in. Now I'm going to grab a little bit of my ultramarine blue again and come right in there and go pretty, quite a bit darker. Okay, so I have a nice lemon there. I can keep going and going. I can add the blemishes if I want to. I would probably switch to a smaller brush and I could pick up a little bit of my ultramarine blue if I want. I can add a little detail there. There's a tiny bit of an end there. There's a little bit of a divot, kind of a thing here. Now I can soften all of these up as I put them in. I'm going to pick up a little bit of burnt umber, put that one up here. Like I said, I like the dips and divots and character, so I don't tend to leave my fruit unblemished. Now what I do to soften the whole thing is to grab a larger soft brush, and then I can just kind of gently go over that spot and it will sort of blend it in just a little bit without losing all of the detail. And you can see how that works. Again, I don't have a ton of paint on here. If you like working with what's called impasto, which is that thick, heavy paint, that's different. That's a different method, and that's another day. But for our purposes, we've got a lemon with some character here. Now, if I want to add a background to that, I can come up right around the edge. And in this case, I think I'll work more with the light. And what I'm going to do is actually remove that and work with that lighter background that we have there. And I have some white and I have a tiny bit of yellow ochre, kind of dirty, and then a little bit of burnt umber just to give me a kind of a beige color. And I can go right up to the edge and pull away from the lemon. So what I don't want to do is run a line around. That is going to just make a big mess, and I don't want to do with that. I don't want to deal with that. For this, it's okay if you wind up making a mess, it's fine, it's just paint. But for my purposes here to show you how to work with this, I don't want to do that. So you can see I put my brush down right at the edge, I lift it up and away, and then I can come back through and kind of clean it up a bit, right? And some painters would say, well, why didn't you just do that in the beginning, adding it there? But sometimes you want to actually paint the subject and then decide what color background you want to work with. And in this case, I was thinking about working with a lighter background from the beginning, but say I didn't and I changed my mind. And so this allows you to paint in some details without having to commit to the background right away. And I don't mind if I pull a little bit of the yellow into the background because that just unifies the piece. I'm not worried if I pull a little bit of the burnt umber in, that's fine too. All I want to do is just pull a little bit, and it's okay if I run right along the edge, that's fine. And just gently kind of fill it in there, taking my time with it. I'm sorry you're gonna lose your view there for a second, but if I come right up to the edge, pull that out. I'm just doing the same thing all the way around. And it's okay, like I said, if I lose a tiny bit of the edge into the background, that's all right. Okay, and I still want a light side, dark side. So in this case, I have that little bit of burnt umber that is in this sort of beige mix. And I'm going to add just a little bit more of that and come down here, put in just a little bit of that darker mixture on this side. And I wind up with an effect that looks like what is called scumbling. So it's a multiple colors mixed in, often a gradient of the same family of colors, but kind of loosely blended together. Now I can add more of my burnt umber. If I wanted to go more blue-gray, I can. I might do that just in a little bit here. Now, I could leave a little bit of reflected light in the in between the shadow and the lemon, but I'm going to come right up to the edge there. Now my shadow stretches out and kind of goes up the wall. I can do that and just give a little bit more drama, or I could stretch it all the way out and pretend that the table and everything just kind of goes out that way. So now I might just lastly grab a little bit of my ultramarine blue, come right in through there. Gives me a nice little bit of a cooler tone there. A little bit more interesting than if I don't have that in. And then I'll grab just for the last bit, I'm going to grab just again that mixture of burnt umber and blue. In this case, it may not be quite as dark as its neighbor here, but dark enough for you to get the sense of a weighted shadow there. Okay, and there's another method for working in oil.